My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Go Cloud Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Go Cloud team.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Cloud Career Q&A session from us here at Go Cloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. I'm joined by Alonso Coleman, our Chief Marketing Officer, and Mike Gibbs, the founder and CEO. Apparently, your title has disappeared. What happened here? Founder. Let me add this in here. What'd you do, Mike?
I switched from a Threadripper system to a Mac over the weekend. I just am so used to the Mac operating system that using Windows felt so odd to me that that's what's going on.
There we go. Now your title is there. Founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, Mike Gibbs. So anyway, welcome to this session where we are here to answer any and all questions that you might have about your cloud computing career. Whether it's about a cloud architect career, cloud engineer career, cloud architect training. What is a cloud architect? What is a cloud engineer? Where should I start if I want to be a cloud architect? What does a cloud architect do? What does a cloud engineer do? Do I need experience to be a cloud architect? What about the job descriptions about cloud architects? It seems like there's so much. Any kind of questions that you have, we're here to answer them. So a little bit about us. Mike, of course, he's our founder and CEO. He's got over 25 years experience as a network architect, enterprise architect, business architect, and of course, founder and CEO, mentor, thought leader, technologist, futurist. All of the above covers Mike Gibbs. So in addition to those for 25 years of working as an architect, for over 2 decades, he's also been helping others reach their dream careers in technology. And that's what brought us to Go Cloud Careers a few years ago. So Mike has been doing this for decades and has helped countless individuals during this time, and we're here to help you. Now, Alonso Coleman over here, he's got over 30 years of experience. Sorry to age you like that, Alonso, but you age well, like fine wine. So Alonso's got over 30 years of experience as a cloud architect, as a marketing and branding expert. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies. He's worked on large cloud projects, and we have persuaded him to just come back and join us in the fold here at Go Cloud Careers as our Chief Marketing Officer to help our clients and our Go Cloud Careers members and students with their marketing and their branding so that they can position themselves for the best careers. And then, of course, we've got me, Chris Johnson. I've got about 15 years of experience in all things business, operations, human resources, projects, all kinds of things in the corporate world that I bring to the table here. So you've got a well-rounded panel of the three of us here right now, to answer your questions. So take advantage to ask those questions. It's difficult to get any of us in one spot, let alone all three of us in the same spot. There's a 16-week or maybe a little longer now waiting period to speak to Mike on a one-on-one consultation. And that's at a cost of $1,200 per hour. You can't speak to me or Alonso in one-on-one consultations. We just don't have the ability or the capability or the flexibility for Alonso or I to do it. So we put Mike out there. Mike, this is all you. You do it. But that's how difficult it is to get us. And we set this time aside to answer your questions. So make sure to ask us your questions. If you don't ask your questions, we can't help you. We can't possibly help you save time, possibly help you save money, possibly help you save some effort and energy and start earning that salary that you want much quicker. So I've done enough babbling. Before I ask Mike and Alonso to tell us to give us an introduction, I do want to tell everybody about two things, only two this time. Tomorrow, we have our free subnetting workshop. That is tomorrow. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a 4-hour workshop. I believe it's going to be Mike and some members of our team are going to be covering subnetting. Now, what does that mean? I have no clue because I'm not a tech guy. So I'm going to be there just like the rest of you. But they're going to be covering everything subnetting. And as Brandon Bowman there in the chat box says, please learn to subnet. I beg you all to be there. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you,
Brandon is working out there in cloud computing and I believe security. But apparently, as he says, he begs you to learn subnetting. So make sure you register for that workshop. Registration link by Tyrone in the chat box. Also, this Thursday, we have our new Elite Cloud Architect program that we are rolling out next month, opening the enrollment up. We are only taking 10 enrollments in this new program. We will have a free information session for you this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And you can learn all about what this program is. It's a combination of our award-winning Cloud Architect Career Development Program, plus so much more to help you get that elite Cloud Architect career and not just get that first job, but set you up for success and set the foundation for long-term career success and career growth. So it's a combination of our award-winning program plus several other additional new components that I'm sure Mike will probably talk about at some point. But register for that. Again, Tyrone put that in the chat box for you. It's already there. Register for that free information session so you can learn about this program. And if you're interested, take one of those 10 slots because it's only going to be 10 at this time. So take advantage of those. That's all I've got. Mike and Alonso, I'll let you guys talk now, and then we can get to some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just always a pleasure to have everyone here so that we can help you realize your goals. We are really, really intent on ensuring that you are on the right path with the right information so that you can ascertain your timeline to success. So please answer your questions. We're looking forward to hearing from you. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, and please ask your questions. See, here's the thing. After 20 years of coaching people, I've been able to answer somebody's question and get them a $100,000 raise. I've been able to take somebody that spent 2 years learning all the wrong things, redirect them to learn all the right things, and help them get the job of their dreams. And the key is the only people that can really help you get to their goals are the people that have already been successful in achieving your goals. I was a principal architect with less than 2 years experience. And the only reason I got there in 2 years is I asked VPs and directors of architecture, what do you need in a perfect architect? And they told me, so that's what I learned. My peers were learning skills from everybody else's job. 15 years later, they were still struggling to move up, and I wasn't, not because I was any better, because I knew what to learn, so I had the opportunity to be here. And that's why I do these things, because I really, really want to help you all live the best career. I would really love you to join us for these Elite Architect webinar. This is a combination of my life's work. I mean, you know, we've been awarded the #1 organization for cloud computing for our career development program and its results. And even today, we've got another student whose last job was investor relations, who got his first architect job as a senior architect, a gentleman named Sonny. And that's kind of normal for us. We have it almost happening every single day. And we can do it for you too as well, but at least ask us your questions. And that way we can help you regardless of where you get your training and education. I just want you to have a great career. So please ask your questions. What I hate is almost every week, everybody's afraid to ask the questions. They wait in the background. And then as we're ready to leave, everybody asks the questions. And I feel like we could have done so much to help you. So please ask your questions. I just want to help you. Being an architect, and I'm going to tell you, and then we'll start getting to questions, has been the best job of my life. I started out by practicing internal medicine, then worked as an engineer. And while I enjoyed being an engineer, It's a hard job. It's a thankless job. You're coming in at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to go fix things. And then the architects are having steak and scotch and getting paid 3 times more. So for me personally, I love architecture careers, but I've trained some incredible cloud engineers, gotten them hired, some incredible network engineers, some good security engineers and architects. And what it's really about is finding a job that makes you happy. Life's too short. What we do has to fulfill us. And if we can arrange it where we can have a job that we love, that pays us enough to buy a nice home, maybe a vacation home, maybe a couple of Mercedes along the way, and never have to think about what life costs, and be able to take good care of our family, to me, that makes me feel good. And that's another thing I love so much about architecture careers. So bring us your questions and I'll start answering them. I think there's 1 or 2 there, Chris, that I'll start with, and please ask the questions so we can help you.
From Helen, I just passed my cloud computing practitioner. Can I work with it? What can I do?
Well, Helen, I want to separate certifications from careers. You could have the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and if that's all you studied, you don't have the skills for any job. Or you could have no certifications and actually have the skills for any job. In fact, I'll give you examples. Delroy Batt had 0 certifications when he got him a cloud security architect job. Jeffrey West, who used to be a geologist that we trained, got him a great cloud architect job with Callion. For example, Robert Welch, who's wonderful and amazing, got a great cloud security architect job with just the cloud practitioner, but he had a lot of skills. So I need to know what your skills are and what would you like to do? Would you like to be an architect? And if so, I'll ask you some questions to see what you know. Would you like to be an engineer? And it's a different set of questions. So Helen, if you could tell me what you'd like to do, then I can ask you to see if you actually have the skills that you actually need. But in a certification, there's nothing that's going to get anybody hired. Certifications are really how vendors sell their stuff. For example, you give you an AWS certification, and I only tell you about all the AWS stuff. And I act like it's what you're supposed to use. And in some cases it is, in other cases it isn't. But it's almost like a vendor brainwashing as opposed to training you for your professional career. So, Helen, the question I have for you is, would you like to design systems, present them back to the customer, and sell them? That's a cloud architect or a solutions architect. Do you want to be behind a desk and build the systems that were designed by the architect? That's a cloud engineer. Do you want to code and deploy infrastructure as code and automate software release cycles? That's a DevOps engineer. And each one of these careers has a completely different set of skills, and 99% of them have nothing to do with the certification. So if you could tell me your goal, I can tell you exactly how to get there. But a certification in of itself is like a degree. Everybody's got one. And the reason the certifications don't mean anything is, first, they don't really parlay to the real skills. For example, as a cloud architect, we design, present, and sell a solution to improve a customer's business performance. And then a certification is about the name of a service and how to configure that service. So again, it's a completely different career. Where, an engineer is about building the systems, and they could be Linux systems, they could be Terraform systems, they could be Python for the engineer. Architects don't code. But for the engineer, it could be, and none of that stuff's going to be covered in these certifications either. So tell me what you'd like to do, and then I can tell you how to get there. Good one. Cloud engineer versus architect. It will be dependent upon you. I'll give you some statistics on both sides of it, but at the end, it's all up to you. A cloud architect is a business executive that also knows technology. We meet with clients, we ask them about their business goals, their business pain points, or business challenges. From there, we design a solution for them. We present the solution back for them. We sell the solution back to them. And then we help negotiate the deal. And once the customer says, yes, Mike, I want your solution, we go off to a new customer. Now, here's the thing with the cloud architect. It pays basically double to 3 times more than a cloud engineer. There's less work involved and a greater standard of living and quality of life as a cloud architect, and here's the reason why. Engineers are coming in at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to build stuff because they can't do it during peak hours. Architects are basically taking their clients to lunches and dinners and playing golf with their clients because a lot of business is done that way. But the key is, what do you like? A cloud engineer sits behind a desk all day long. They code Python scripts, Bash scripts. They configure things. via the command line, the management console. They set up infrastructure as code, code a cloud engineer, and they are stuck behind a desk all day long. Now, we have cloud architects that earn $500,000 plus a year. In a cloud engineering role, it's going to be near impossible to earn over $150,000 a year. And that's related to basically what's going on. So for example, at Google, we've got, an average pay of a principal architect, which I was in less than 2 years, of $508,000 a year, with a pay range of $394 to $677. And if we look at a principal architect at Microsoft, it's a bit of a lower pay. Microsoft's an incredible company to work for. I've never met anybody at Microsoft that didn't love working there. And they're getting paid basically $379 a year with a pay range of $300 to $500. And that's an architect job. So the key is, what do you want to do? I would like you to remember this. Engineering is all about the tech. Architecture is all about the business. And because the architect needs so much training in soft skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, the architect job can easily move into a chief information officer role. It can move to a chief technology officer role. It can move into VP and other big leadership roles. Because the engineering is all about the tech, to get out of engineering, it's about developing an MBA or going to leadership training, because they're focused on tech. So much more upside with the architect job, much greater salary with the architect job. But here's the thing. You got to do what makes you happy. If you don't like talking to people, and don't be an architect, be an engineer. If you want to touch the tech all day long and code and configure all day long, guess what? Be an engineer, because architects don't touch the tech. We design it, present it, and sell it. So the key is doing what makes you happy, but they're both great careers. If you'd like to ask more questions or get a little deeper, I'm thrilled to do so. If you'd like to be an architect, I recommend you take our Elite Architect webinar, because we'll cover this role so in depth, and I think it'll be a great experience for you. And you'll come online, we can have a face-to-face conversation, and I will do anything we can to help you get your best job. You guys can move to the next one.
All right, let's see what the next one is. So follow up from Helen earlier. I have no IT background. What do I need to do to be a solutions architect, and what does it entail?
So Helen, it has nothing to do with your IT background. And I'll give you reasons. For example, we had Noah Parker, for example, who was a social worker who got a cloud architect job after our training. We had Jennifer Inu, who was a mental health tech, who got a cloud architect job after our training. We had Delroy Bad, who worked on ambulances, who got a cloud architect job without our training. We had Jeffrey West, who got an architect job outside of our training. Vladimir was a 24-year-old who got an architect job after our training, and none of these people I've mentioned so far have had any experience. Ivan Tambo came to us from Cameroon, got a cloud architect job with no training, with no experience after our training. Coyote, another gentleman from Cameroon, because I think I mentioned Ivan Tama, got a cloud architect job without training. Wallace the Ghana was our student from Ghana. Well, interestingly enough, it almost rhymes with his last name. Got an enterprise architect job with no training. Jermaine Halfton was a student of ours. He was a Jamaican guy selling landscaping gear. Now he's working as an enterprise architect after training. And I can give you example after example after example. The key is becoming a cloud architect is about developing the right business skills and tech skills. From a technology perspective, it's about learning networking, data center, and cloud technologies, as you need to know the legacy systems, which are going to move to the cloud, as well as the cloud systems in order to design them. Not the name of the service and how to configure it, but all about how they work. And the technology understanding you need is at a much deeper level than you would get in certifications. And that's why we've got a very rigorous cloud architect training program. From a business perspective, it's about developing the following skills. Business acumen, because the whole point is you designing architectures to solve business problems. It's about leadership skills, sales skills, executive communication skills, executive presence, and presentation skills. You get those skills, and you're going to have an incredible cloud architect career. And it has nothing to do with your level of experience. It has to do with how good you are at these skills, how persuasive you can be, and how much business you truly understand. And it's the best job in the world. I've been an architect now since, well, practically 1996. And I got to tell you, I've loved every last minute of it, and I know you will too. Please join us for the completely free Elite Architect webinar on Thursday. And not only can we interview you and assess your situation if you desire, but we can guide you as well, because I want you to have an incredible solution architect career. I think it's the best job in the world.
All right, let's see. After watching your last live stream, I understand the job of a cloud architect. I'm not fluent in English speaking. Should I first improve my English before joining your program? I'm in China.
Well, that's an interesting question. No matter what, you're going to have to become an expert communicator for this job. And some of it's going to have to be in English and some of it's going to have to be in China. Now, the best way to learn a language from my perspective, and I speak multiple languages, is to actually immerse yourself in it. And if you are in our program, you would be completely immersed in it. And you'd be forced to give presentations in English. And you'd have us give you feedback and guidance on it. Now, Wang, we're not like other people. We don't take you and say, you're with us for 16 weeks and get out of here. You can actually stay in our program until you're hired. So here's the reality. And you could learn English first and then come to us, or you could take our training. And if it takes you a year to do it, fine. And we have other people that take our program and they disappear for 6 months and they want to come back. And we still generally allow that too, because we just want everybody to get hired. Graduation for us is the day you get your cloud architect job. And you've got a year in the live classes to do it in unlimited time, using our Slack community, interacting with our community. We never take your videos away. We never take the written documents away. So it depends on how good your English is, how fast you learn, whether you should work on English first or not. I'd love to get Alonso's perspective here too. I know when I met my wife, for example, and I learned Greek very quickly because I was with her. I know when I was younger, I dated a girl from Cuba. And in about 2 months after spending time with her, I was speaking fluent Spanish. I lost it when I didn't use it every day. But when you use something every day, to me, it's pretty easy. I know, actually, Alonso went to Japan for a period of time and speaks Japanese. So, I'd like to get other people's perspective who speak other languages and have learned and gone to school in other countries. For example, I taught at Athens University. I thought that was really great. And I had to brush up on my Greek by speaking to my mother-in-law all day, every day for about a month before I did it. So I might do it, but I'd like to get my team's perspective, starting with Alonso, because he also speaks other languages.
Well, Huang, I understand your frustration. When I went to, overseas to Japan, and my first class was immediately in Japanese. Okay, so we hit the ground running, flipping pages, trying to understand the context. It started off with simple understanding of the context of the Japanese language. So in your perspective, I think this is going to be an excellent opportunity for you to strengthen your English skills, be able to understand the concepts in both your native language as well as in English, so that you can see both sides of the fence, as I learned it as well through more or less, for all intents and purposes, an immersion program. So I think that you're going to be successful regardless. You're going to have a one-stop shop, if you will. So I would not be intimidated with the English language and trying to learn these concepts along the way. And that's for a few reasons. It's because I did it, although it was in a different environment, but the overall result was the same. And two, we have a phenomenal support system of people in our Slack community that are always eager to not only help you understand the concepts, but also if there's some differences in nuanced context in how you structure your sentences that are going to be different than how you speak English, we're going to help you with that as well. So don't feel intimidated. Don't feel uncomfortable. We're here with you from beginning to end. Okay. So don't feel bad.
Yeah. And I'll chime in here from someone who has not learned any language other than English, despite taking 6 years of French in primary school. But you know, the idea of the immersion, I found it very interesting. So I've had the opportunity to travel a lot in my life, and when I've traveled, I don't use Google Translate and things of that nature. I do more listening than I do talking, but I found myself, and Alonso used the word context here, really, and I think that's really important here for someone that's not native to a language. You can pick up context very quickly. You can pick up the intention of a language or a phrase or a sentence or a paragraph quicker than you might actually be able to pick up the actual words that are being used to communicate. And I say that from experience, having traveled and been in places and only being in a place for a week or two, being able to pick up and feel comfortable. Oh, I understand what they're talking about. I don't understand what they're saying, but that can happen just within a matter of a few days of just immersing yourself with others. And I want to follow that up with that at least half of our current students are not native English speakers.
At least.
So you will not be in a minority. You will at least be in a plurality, probably a majority of our students. I'm very comfortable saying a plurality of our students are not native English speaking. Not sure about majority, but you're not going to be in uncharted waters. You're going to be in there with other people that are in a similar situation, and the immersion is the best way to do it. So back to the basis of the question: should I first improve my English before joining your program? Absolutely not. If your intention is to join the program and use the program to improve your English as well.
That's a good point because we focus so much on communication skills in our program.
Exactly. All right. Let's see. Follow up from Helen, asking for some clarification. Do you mean that you can get hired with the skills? Thank you for the explanations. See you on Thursday.
Absolutely, Helen. I gave you a list of 10. I could think of people like Al, who just got hired by Deloitte, and this was his first tech job, and he became a senior solution architect. I can think of Balwinder, who was a stay-at-home mom, who's now a solution architect with Microsoft, for example. I could think of Daniel Bosa, who didn't even graduate high school, who's working at JP Morgan Chase. So the point is, if you've got the right skills, you can get any job you want. It's always the skills that matter.
Yep. The skills are the important thing, and the certifications are the things that are supposed to convey that you have the skills, but they don't.
They don't.
And hiring managers
know it.
Augustine says, I have worked as a music producer and a technical support. How do I streamline these skills to be relevant as a cloud architect? It's a good question.
Well, it's a great question, Augustine. And let me pull out the skills that are relevant. What you did in tech support from a tech perspective is not relevant. But you did a tremendous number of relevant things, both as a music producer and in tech support. So for example, in tech support, in order to get to the root of the problem, you have to ask the right questions. The ability to ask the right questions is a big thing for the architect, because we have to start with the client. What is their business goals? What are their pain points? What are their challenges? What's their technology doing? Is it working? Is it not working? That, in technical support, I bet you have 30% of that done already, and that's good. Now, anything you do hands-on tech-wise, Augustine, isn't going to be relevant. And what I mean by this is, if you went into somebody's computer and you typed ifconfig, and you looked at the IP address on their Linux or Mac system, or WinIPconfig in Windows, or ipconfig/all, or whatever that stuff is, that's hands-on stuff. And architects don't do anything hands-off. We design, present, and sell. So, and you don't really learn how things work by necessarily doing support. You learn how things work by studying how they work under the hood. So the questions that you're doing in technical support, awesome. Now, also in technical support, there's a lot of customer service. When people's things don't work, they call and they're angry. And you may have developed some emotional intelligence to make them feel better along the way and some customer service skills. That, again, is going to carry over. So those two things from technical support I love. Now the music producer piece, now you got some really good stuff. Because let's say you want to listen to music, right? Or an artist is trying to create music. You have to work with them to think about what's going to make it better, right? You know, do we add a little distortion over here? Do we raise the volume of this? Do we put backup singers in there? Do we add these instruments? Do we add some cool effects? Guess what, Augustine? That's architecture. Designing the plan to make the music sound awesome. That's architecture. So that asking the client what they want and imagining what you think it needs to meet those clients' expectations, that's actually architecture. So Augustine, you developed a lot of good skills, I'm sure, as a music producer. Client, what do you want? Client, is this the right thing? Presenting it back to the client. So I actually think you're going to get a lot more out of the music producer than the tech support. So I would say take advantage and demonstrate when you're on an interview your good customer service skills. Demonstrate your ability to ask the right questions. Then demonstrate your ability to get the client's desires and create something to make the client happy and convince them they need it. You've actually got probably 40% of the skills already right there from those two careers. And I would put those things on your resume and I'd be prepared to discuss that with the hiring manager. Now, if you told me you were coding in your job, I'd say, well, that's great, but architects don't code. It's somebody else's job. And, you know, it takes a lot of retraining to go from engineering to architecture. And we have a tremendous number of cloud engineers and software developers and DevOps engineers that we've retrained and gotten them great cloud architect jobs. But I think the skills that you have are actually some extremely good skills, and I'd pop them on my resume. How about you, Chris? You want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add on to what you're saying here to take it a step further. You know, Mike is talking about these skills from your career that seem completely unrelated to the architect career from the outside perspective. That's a big part of what we do in our training and in our programs is we tease out those details from your experience and your background. Obviously, we can only do so much here on YouTube, but in our program, we've got the opportunity over the course of your time in the program to tease those out. You have the opportunity to tease those out and figure out how to package that and present that with your new accumulated knowledge of cloud computing and cloud architecture and design. So I just wanted to chime in there about that because it's, you know, saying putting that on your resume and being able to talk about it, that's a simple thing to say, but figuring it out, that's where you're going to have that's where you're going to need a good bit of work, and that's one of the things that we excel in. So I just wanted to give a shameless plug there about, because I know if I'm listening to this, my next question is, oh, how do I do that? Well, we can't do it here on YouTube. It just doesn't present the opportunity for us to do that, but that's what you're able to do. And Mike is completely right. And there's so many careers that have relatable experiences.
Yeah,
I'm sure
definitely.
Alonso can speak to that as well.
Yeah, Augustine, you think about you're producing the music, you're walking and helping the artist create something wonderful, magnificent, and focused on the market, right? So you can flip that on yourself. You're going to use a set of concepts as cloud architecture, and you're going to start producing it for yourself. You're going to start understanding, like, say, for instance, if it's a specific genre and you understand what it takes for that specific sound, beat, timbre, and everything else. So sound, beat, timbre, cloud security, networking, concept to concept, convert that over, be able to create and understand how all these components fit for a beautiful set of architecture just like a beautiful composition of music. So it's the same transition. That's how you can do that as well. Technical, I've done program and project management. You're creating those steps in a specific frame of mind, and you can do the same thing here. So Augustine, you've got the components. You just have to look at it from a technical perspective now. And then on top of trying to get all of these different type of personalities, characteristics of musicians, how they like to eat, how they like to play. They maybe sleep all day and they do their best music at night. How are you going to orchestrate these capabilities, these abilities, competencies of people to work all together to create the overall finished product for A&R and everybody else? You have it. I see how you can translate it, and we'd be more than happy. And if we're able to illustrate this here, imagine what we can do if you're one of our clients.
All right. Question from Akam. Hello, Mike. I'm interested in cloud security. Already enrolled in the cloud engineering program, which is going well. My goal is to become an elite multi-cloud security engineer. What skills set will you advise I focus on as a cloud security engineer?
Well, Akam, there's going to be two kinds of security. There's going to be defensive and offensive. I'm going to work right now on defensive security engineer. And if you want to be offensive, it's a completely different set of skills. So let me know that. To be a defensive engineer, you're going to have, and remember, architects are about designing and engineers are about building. So engineers need hands-on skills while architecture is all theoretical. You're going to have to get really good at building security solutions. So that means configuration of firewalls. And we're not talking about something like AWS WAF or Google's firewall. We're talking about real next generation firewalls, such as Palo Alto systems, our Palo Alto networks, or Fortinet or Cisco or Checkpoint, real next generation firewalls that are adaptive in nature. Now, while you're at it, you're probably going to have some knowledge about configuring intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems. Even though they're part of next generation firewalls, you're going to need to be there. You're going to have good understanding of encryption technologies and tuning them and setting them up, whether they be hashing algorithms or storage algorithms, or things like a tripwire, which you would use on Linux to see if files would be changed all the time. Because remember, engineering is a big hands-on job. You're gonna have to get pretty good at writing vulnerability management scripts to start scanning your systems, for example. So a little bit of scripting is gonna be there that you're gonna need. And that's why in our engineering program, we've got those scripting things. Now, while you're at it on the engineering side, you're going to have to get used to zero trust and how to work with those environments, and SASE and how to get used to that kinds of environments. You're going to have to get really good at determining how to set up access lists. You're going to get really good at data loss prevention strategies and really good at SIEM. But for the engineer, it's about the build, and more building. Architects don't touch the tech. They design business technology solutions to business problems. But engineers, it's going to be there. So it's really about getting on the console and getting used to all these firewalls and really setting them up. Learning how to do operating system hardening, for example. How are you going to lock down a Linux system? How are you going to lock down a Windows system? How are you going to patch these systems? And, while you're also at it, it's also learning some of the networking things that you could do. Could you do it in a VLAN? Could it be done in zero trust? Do you need to divide your company into 1,000 different VPCs? Because anytime you micro-segment your network, you're now in a position where you can use more routing and access controllers to kind of do these things. You probably need to get some good hands-on skills with identity and access management platforms like Active Directory, for example, and integrating those things into the cloud providers thing. So, we're talking engineering, so I had to get a little geeky there. If we're talking architecture, it's much more businessy, but you asked engineering, so we got to get geeky. So that's why I got a little geeky out for you. And I like to get hands-on tech myself too sometimes, even though I'm an architect, so it's not my job. So in my spare time, I like to play with tech too, just because I think it's fun.
You have spare time, Mike?
No, But
Okay.
this weekend, Leo
I was
and I were
gonna
trying to
say,
set,
I need you to show me the spare time because I don't know where it is.
this weekend, Leo and I were trying to play with my 64-core Threadripper system, which has like a half a terabyte in RAM with it. And for whatever reason, we couldn't get Ubuntu Linux to load on it, but we got Red Hat working on it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. My wife would like to know where the spare time is. Also, she's missing out on it too.
Like,
Of
where
course, she
is
works
it?
in hotels, so there's no spare time there. Oh, all right. From John. Hi, Mike.
Hi, John.
Are you offering CCNA courses from scratch?
John, we're about building careers versus certifications. For example, I would tell you that I viewed my Cisco Certified Internet Expert and my number 7417 as my intro to networking. Having said that, we have a completely free CCNA course on our YouTube channel, and you're more than welcome to take advantage of it. And lots of people have used this. Lots of people have been extremely complimentary, and lots of people have passed the exam. And let's be fair, I taught networking since 1996. I've either been in networking or teaching networking. I was teaching network engineers at WorldCom, which is now Verizon. I taught network engineers at Cisco because I was on part of the team that would do a lot of training. I taught it at Riverstone Networks, which is now Nokia. And I've been teaching networking now forever to everybody. I've got students working at every major organization that I've taught networking to. So yes, we have a completely free CCNA course from scratch. We start from the very beginning and we get there, and it's completely free on our YouTube channel. Somebody from my team can pop up link to the CCNA playlist.
All right.
And John, learning networking is a great thing to do. But John, what career do you want? And the reason I say this is, if it's an architecture career, like a cloud architect or a network architect, it's more about system design. If it's an engineering career, it's more about hands-on building skills. So where do you want to go? So we can better guide you.
All right. All right. All right. Studying for my CISSP, and I enjoy the auditing and risk management section. Could I make a career solely focus on those two portions as a cloud security architect?
James, not as a cloud security architect. If you're a cloud security architect, you're going to be designing cloud security. Now, I'm going to give you some information. The auditing people are going to be the lowest paid people in the entire room because nobody wants to pay people to audit their systems. So while a cloud security architect might be a $300,000 job, the auditing person might be a $50,000 to $60,000 job. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, you could build a career around risk management if you were an attorney. So if you went to law school and are a board certified attorney, then you could actually earn money in risk management, and you'd be a risk management expert because you were an attorney. But there's really going to be no career in risk management unless you went to law school. So I think we have to determine what's the difference between an architect and an engineer. An architect is the big picture. How do we design the entire thing to protect the organizations? What assets are we trying to protect? What's the value of them? What are the technologies that'll lock it down? What are the training elements that we actually have to do for the people? What kind of firewalls should we actually use, for example? So there's that. So, I mean, as an auditor, now, if you worked for a PricewaterhouseCoopers, or you worked as one of the big four consulting firms, they have auditing divisions that organizations use. Now, those people typically are more MBA types and lawyer types that are working in auditing, and those people could actually do okay, but you're really, really, really limiting your options. And unless you have a real risk management, like a legal solution background, legal career, I strongly don't recommend it. Because if it's me, who am I going to hire? A lawyer that knows risk management, that knows the laws, that knows what I have to do if we're hacked, that actually can determine, are we in compliance with this law is for real? Someone that can read a law that's 8,000 pages that it's cryptic and hard to figure it out. I'd want an attorney for that, and I'd be willing to pay it. And I wouldn't hire somebody that didn't go to law school for that. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But as a cloud security architect, you can have a pretty great career.
All right. I missed some questions earlier that I skipped over by accident. Let me go back to them. How would you suggest students in the program get the most learning benefit from the 3 different live sessions each week?
Participate.
Yes.
Yeah, throughout
absolutely.
the class, I get the class involved. I ask for volunteers. I ask people questions. Wang, I can tell you who's successful, the people that participate. Hi, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. So for example, I remember the day I met Ivan Tambo. And I remember Ivan Tambo because he came the first day. He was wearing this red sweatshirt that said Georgia Tech. And he's waving his arm like this. And I'm like, hi, Ivan. And he's like, oh, I just wanted to introduce you. Well, let me tell you, Wang, he was there like a fireball. He was working as a waiter, driving 90 minutes back and forth each way to work and school. He was in college, took our course, and then he got hired as a solution architect with AWS. And he did great, but he participated. I've got students that participate and participate and participate all the time. And it was Georgia Tech that he went to, and I know it was a red sweatshirt. I don't remember what it actually was, but I just remember.
Yeah, I was going to say it wasn't a red sweatshirt if it was Georgia Tech, but I know the red shirt. I think it was a polo.
He was wearing a red shirt when he first went there, but I just remember the way he stood. And, you know, I saw that with so many of our people. It's the participation. We have projects. We ask for leaders. We ask for presenters. The more you do, the better you're going to do. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind.
We want to also see your face. This is how you build relationships. Huang is cloud architects. That is a focal point. If you are not able to build relationships internally with your team, internally with leadership, internally with people from different departments to help realize this architecture, it's going to be over before it begins, let alone you building relationships with these external stakeholders that you're trying to sell this architecture to. So maximize your opportunities here. We have, just like I was speaking to saying before, we have a wonderful global community of people who are always trying to help. They're looking to help because overall, people are not worried about if there's going to be any architect jobs amongst everyone, because there are more jobs than you could possibly imagine. And everyone is singularly trying to help themselves, but they're also trying to help everyone else succeed. And that's what makes us unique here. So maximize your opportunities by participating, showing your face so that we know Huang knows how to do this. Huang needs help. Huang is the go-to person. He's willing to network or to work in groups, small groups, depending on location or interest. If you want to be a security architect like someone else, everyone comes together for that singular goal. So that's how you maximize. Participate, put your screen on, answer questions. If you're not able to do so, then reach out in the Slack community. There's never an excuse to not participate.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the flip side. I love how Mike used Ivan as an example, because guess what Ivan wasn't able to do?
True. Too many classes.
Attend the live classes.
Yeah.
When he came, he participated.
He would listen to our classes on his way to and on his way home from work and classes at Georgia Tech. He had 45-minute to an hour one-way bus rides, and he would listen and watch these on his phone as he's riding the bus.
So true.
So I love how you used Ivan as an example just to show the participation aspect. But Ivan is just one example of the participating, but he's a great example of if you're not able to attend them live because you have other commitments, take advantage of the recordings. We put them there for a reason.
But it was that attitude of I'm here to learn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. Let me see. I got to make sure I don't miss any of these ones that I accidentally skipped earlier. Okay. All right.
Waweru. For cloud architects, should you be proficient with more than one cloud computing platform, thus studying for their certifications?
Okay, so Wero 88, let me help you. What if you had to buy an apple? Does it matter which supermarket would you get to? Would it be any different? No, it's just an apple. So here's the thing, Wero. All clouds are nothing more than a network and a data center that's been virtualized. If you understand what virtual machine is, and you understand the hypervisors and the architecture of virtual machine, it's no different if it's sitting in their VMware ESXi data center, a Nutanix cloud, an IBM OpenStack cloud, the AWS EC2 instance, a Google Compute Engine instance, or Azure virtual machine, or an Oracle virtual machine. It's identical. And if you're going to design virtual machines, it doesn't matter. Now, same thing if you're going to design a container strategy. It's going to be Kubernetes, because 98% of organizations are multi-cloud, which means can't use any Azure Kubernetes service or Elastic Kubernetes service or silly Elastic Compute service, because we have to use a Kubernetes cluster, which means we self-manage it. So again, it's the same Kubernetes on AWS, Azure, Google, Nutanix, OpenStack, OpenShift from Red Hat. It's all the same. Now, how about BGP? It's the same BGP that Cisco uses, Juniper uses, Palo Alto uses, Fortinet uses, Checkpoint uses, Arista Networks uses, AWS uses, Google uses, Azure uses. It's the same. So if you know the cloud, you know them all. Now, if you just go to a certification and you learn the name of an EC2 instance and how to set that up, you won't know anything about a cloud and you'll have no idea how to be an architect. So you have to understand the underlying technologies. It's kind of like learning to drive. Do you need to get certified on 3 different cars? I got to tell you, for a little while, I drove a Honda. It was a nice car. And then I bought a Volvo, and guess what? I didn't get certified to do it. I got in there. I knew this was the steering wheel. This was the gas. This was the brake. Here's how you put it in park. Here's how you shifted it. Here's how you turned the key. After my Volvo, which I really loved, I bought a Mercedes SUV, and I love my Mercedes. And guess what? It's the same thing as driving my Volvo and my wife's Toyota, because that's what she likes, my old Honda, my mother-in-law's Hyundai, because it's a car. It's just a car. So as a cloud architect, you need to understand the legacy technology that you're moving to the cloud. And guess what? It's the same stuff on the cloud. So you must know how to work with every cloud that's out there as an architect. 98% of organizations are there. But you're not going to learn any of what you need to learn in the certification. So I want you to learn the cloud and then get 2 certifications. 2, only 2, and get rid of every other one from your resume. Get 1 certification in the cloud. And I don't care if it's the Azure Solutions Architect Expert or the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. And then figure out what you want to do. You want to do networking, get a CCNP. You want to do security, get a CISSP. Something to show there's that. And why am I saying this? Well, the CCNP covers about 10,000 pages of reading to pass the exam. In AWS Advanced Networking, coincidentally, includes no networking, and it's about 300 pages of reading to pass the exam. Now, if you're an employer, which do you think is more important to you? The person that had the diligence to read the 10,000 pages and get some substantial knowledge, or the person that took some little silly exam by the cloud provider that they could have done in a weekend and learned nothing? So 1 big industry certification based upon what you desire to do, something that's deeply respected, and 1 cloud certification, only at the professional level. And you'll be good to go. But learn the cloud, not the cloud provider.
So, team, is it possible to adapt your English accent to international public? I mean, your English accent is not easy for a non-English speaking audience like me. I'm interested in the program, but I want to make sure if I ask questions, I will understand your answer.
Well, let's do 2 things. One is none of us actually have an English accent. We have American accents. And it's a different accent, which is different than an Australian accent, which is actually different than a Canadian accent. This is the language we speak. Now, the reality is nobody's ever had a hard time listening to me. And I've worked in every country in the world that you can think of. And whether I was in an Arabic country like United Arab Emirates, whether I was in Panama, whether I'm dealing with students in Cameroon on the French side or the English side, whether I'm dealing with students in Nigeria, we've got students in Ghana, I've got students in Togo, I've got students in Malaysia and students in Hong Kong and students in other parts of Asia. I've got students in South America, Brazil, for example. We had somebody recently, one of our students, get his first architect job in Mexico. I've got employees in Colombia. So the reality is we speak in a manner that's typically slow enough. We have written content in our program, video content, and people that speak. And our staff right now, I can tell you, we've got Eddie who speaks English and French. He's in Cameroon. We've got Anselm who speaks English. We have Tyrone over there in Cape Town, South Africa, who speaks Afrikaans, who also speaks English. We have Chow, who's absolutely amazing, and she speaks Vietnamese and English. I think she might speak a little French too. We've got Alonso, who speaks Japanese. We've got me, who speaks Greek. We've got Leo, who speaks Portuguese as well as Spanish. And Manuela also speaks Spanish. And I know I'm missing out on a lot of languages, but we do the best we can to make work with our international audience. And we've got students getting hired in India, Pakistan, Middle East, Africa, everywhere in the world. And the community really helps with the understanding. And the community really works with people together to really build everybody up. And we don't really rush anybody. We want you in the program until you're hired, because why else would we do this? I don't run a boot camp to say, here's how much money we can charge in 16 weeks, get out of here, like our competition. That's not fair to you. Graduation for us is when you're hired. We give you a full year in the live classes to do it, and you don't need a year in live classes.
Big thing to add to that is, if you ask a question, you can ask a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't quite understand, because it's happened. I've had to rephrase things before because someone doesn't understand what I say, because I don't speak English. I speak Mississippi, and Mississippi is a mixture of like Creole, English, Indian, French. And all kinds of stuff. So, I've had to rephrase things for English-speaking people. So that's just it's not like you get a one shot at a question and you're done. I've seen people ask questions on the Slack community that have ended up being like a 57 message thread because people are clarifying, adding more context, and other people that may be more familiar with the language have chimed in, and that's Mike mentioned that the community is helpful here. So the community is extremely helpful here, especially, and I'm just using these as examples. If you've got someone that's from a African nation, the likelihood that you're probably going to understand French a little bit better than English in some of those is very high. So I've seen people from France that live in France come in and help the people that might live in French-speaking nations in Africa, and vice versa. And I just use that as one example. But same with Arabic speaking, and Spanish speaking, and so many languages. That's the beauty of the community, is that the community will come in and help as they're able to, and that's quite often, because I may not be able. I could probably rephrase something 15 times and still not get it to make sense, and I will find somebody and say, "Hey, help me make this translation to the appropriate person." So that's one of the biggest aspects that we love about what we have is the community aspect. And that's just one way that the community it makes a big impact. All right. Pernell has a multi-part question here. Why do companies want their cloud architects to be familiar with a particular cloud provider and their services? It appears that maybe at times companies are misguided by the marketing of the providers. So I wonder how much convincing with cloud architects need to do in order to promote vendor-neutral services.
Pernell, of all the companies I've ever spoken to, which is thousands of them, none of them are obsessed with you knowing a particular provider. What they're obsessed is your ability to do the job. Now, I will tell you this. There are a tremendous number of people that don't understand what the cloud is. For example, if you read the AWS definition of cloud computing, and it's the on-demand access to various compute systems, you're not even going to know what cloud computing is. Now, if I just told you that all of cloud computing is a network and a data center that's been virtualized, and it's slower virtual versions of what we used to use in the data center. Data center has a physical load balancer. Cloud has a virtual load balancer. Data center has a physical firewall. Cloud has a virtual firewall. Data center has a physical server. Cloud have virtual servers. Data centers have virtual machines. Cloud has virtual machines. Data center has a router. Cloud has a virtual router. Data center has a router doing NAT. Cloud has a NAT gateway. It's a virtual router doing NAT. Data center has an internet gateway. It's a router with an internet connection. The cloud has an internet gateway. It's a virtual router with an internet connection. It's the same thing. I mean, literally nothing's been changed. Cisco had NetFlow, which would enable you to see the traffic going through your network 20 years ago. AWS has this new, brand new, exciting thing. It's fancy, fancy, fancy. It's called VPC Flow Logs. It's 20-year-old tech. It's the identical tech. But the marketing departments have been paid so many millions of dollars to come up with ridiculous names for things. Object storage is invented in the 1970s, and everybody has it. But when you talk about AWS, it's Amazon Simple Storage Solution, and it sounds so exciting, right? If I told you it was 50-year-old technology, it's not so exciting. So the key is understanding what's going on, and most real hiring managers know. So the key is if the company knows what they're doing, they don't care. But a lot of companies have been told that we got to move to the cloud and need to hire a cloud person, and they don't know what the cloud actually is. And because of that, that's causing this. But the reality is, when the people that have that, they're there. Now, it is good for you to know one cloud and know it well. And that's why we give people the AWS track or the Azure track, and we don't care. If you know the cloud, but it's good to know the weaknesses of one cloud provider. Yeah. So, AWS S3 has its specific things. And if you're going to work on AWS, you have to brush up on those specific things. If you're on Azure, their blob, which is the same thing, has slightly different variations of the same specific things, strengths and weaknesses. If you go to Google, they have cloud storage, which is the same object storage that's 50-year-old technology, but there's a little tuning differences. So that's all they're really looking for you to know. To make sure there's no gotchas or alligators going to ready to eat you along the way, so to speak. But your organizations are going to want you to do vendor neutral anyway, because the reality is once you throw a DynamoDB into the equation, you've messed up multi-cloud. But MongoDB or Apache Cassandra doesn't work. How about like an Amazon, what's that goofy thing, Amazon Aurora, their branded database? Now here's the reality. It's not as good as an Oracle database by any stretch of the imagination. So you could use an Oracle database and stick it in your 3 clouds, or you could use the Amazon branded Aurora, which isn't as good as Oracle anyway, and then lock yourself into a single solution. So Purnell, I like to look at things in terms of specialty. I love watching Usain Bolt run because he's so darn fast, and it's really great. I promise you, Usain Bolt is not a good swimmer. I love watching Simone Biles do gymnastics because that's all she does, and she's great at it. But you know what? She's not going to be a good marathon runner. She's not built for it. And really, that's the key, is each organization does their best. If Oracle makes databases, guess what? Their databases are going to be a lot better than Amazon, who makes databases and virtual machines and virtual containers and virtual firewalls and virtual storage and virtual remote access. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife or a multi-tool like a Leatherman compared to going to Snap-on and buying a really good screwdriver and a really good saw. That $200 screwdriver from Snap-on is going to do a better job being a screwdriver than that Leatherman, which was $80 and has 30 tools that are sitting inside the same tool. Think of the cloud stuff as like a Swiss Army knife that does a lot of stuff, almost good enough. Think of these specialty providers like Oracle or Palo Alto. I mean, it's people that are focused on one thing. They're the Simone Biles, the Olympic gymnasts of the world. They're the Usain Bolts of the world, or the Michael Phelps of swimming. That's all they do, and they're darn good at it.
Right. Alan asked, would you suggest any additional resources to study alongside your boot camp for AWS SAA cert?
Yes. White papers that are on Amazon site. Because what are the Amazon exams about? They're about teaching you how to sell more Amazon stuff. Mm-hmm. And the white papers that Amazon writes are designed to convince you to sell more of their stuff. So I would strongly recommend you read the documentation from Amazon. That's what I recommend because they make the exam. I also like doing practice exams because there's nothing complicated in any of these AWS exams, but the way they ask questions is they're very cryptic. And that's how they take an exam that's relatively simple and make it complicated by asking questions in a very tricky manner. So I'd read the AWS white papers and I would get a practice exam. And these exams are going to be nothing for you.
And on those practice exams, what's your suggestion? As far as when, because I can take a practice exam and...
Yeah, good point. So here's the key for me. I like people to take a practice exam until they can score 95% on the practice exam. And that to me is time that they're ready to take the exam. So you get a practice exam, it's got about 600 questions on it. You get those questions until you can answer 95% on your exams, and then you're ready. And here's the reason why. There's only so many ways that I can ask you what is a virtual machine. And if you do it on a practice exam, they're going to ask you the same question 6 different ways. And one of those ways is going to be very similar to the way they ask you on the exam. So that'll help you there. Plus, a good way to remember on an AWS exam is choose the thing that's going to use as many AWS things as possible. Because, you know, the whole point of an exam is to brainwash you to use their stuff, to help you basically be a sales arm. And I had a student this weekend that used our course and just passed the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and I sent him a congratulations message, and he said, Mike, here's the thing. I had a 50% off coupon for the exam. I was totally ill-prepared for the exam, and I used your secret. Every question I had, I figured which would cost the customer the most money and use as many AWS services as possible. I chose that, and the exam was over, and it was a nothing exam. He said, you're right. It's all that. I don't sell as much stuff as possible.
Yeah, it is indoctrination through certification.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Simple tips to pass AWS certification.
Find the most expensive solution and win.
Yeah. All right. Karen asks, will I be able to easily pass the CCNP cert while in your course and studying networking, or would I need to also get some additional certification training to cover some subjects on CCNP?
Karen, you're not going to need CCNP certification training. We're going to cover some things to the CCIE level, other things to the CCNP level, and other things to the CCNA level. But all you're going to need is to buy the books from the Cisco Press books from Cisco. I've had a tremendous number of students who easily passed the CCNP. Douglas Gillette, who happens to be in the chat box, did it recently. He can tell you there was almost no networking on it anymore. It was more about vendor stuff. But I've had so many students do it, and they've all done it with almost effortless manner. So buy the Cisco Press books, get a practice exam from them. Our focus is to make you a great cloud architect. And part of being a great cloud architect is understanding BGP. Guess what? BGP is barely covered in the CCNP. It's a CCIE thing and a CCDE thing. We have to cover that. But with the amount of content we cover on VLANs and switching and spanning tree and WAN technologies and routing, it's going to be 80% of what you need to know, and the remaining 20% you can easily get from that book like nothing. Because when we do it, we give you everything that you need and nothing you don't to be a great cloud architect. Our focus is not certification. Our focus is get you a $200,000 job and help you get set up for $300,000 and $400,000 and $500,000 jobs years later because of leadership skills, not how to pass an exam.
Yeah, I think the question I have here is what's the desire for the CCNP certification? Yeah. So, Mike, like Mike said, you know, we talk about how we cover CCNP level this, CCIE level this, et cetera, that. And what we're talking about there is we're not training the entire CCIE knowledge base or the entire CCNP knowledge base, because there's knowledge and information in it that's not relevant to the desired goal here. So when he says we train everything you need and nothing you don't, we're not covering these things that are not relevant to the role. So I think I wonder what the desire for the CCNP certification is there. And I'd like to, if Karen replies in the chat box, I'd like to come back to that after she replies, because I think that's a good question, a good follow-up response to that. Helen says, can I get someone to speak or email to guide me through my career?
If you're looking for career guidance, you can ask us questions here. You can book a private session with me, although there's an 18-week wait for that. If you're interested in our training, we can get somebody to help you with your things. But if you're interested in career guidance only, either attend these free sessions, attend one of our How to Get Your First Job webinars, and you can ask us questions on how to become an architect there. And if you want something personalized for you on career guidance, you can book a private session with me. No, there's an 18-week wait for it because demand is so high, and that's why we're here right now for free to answer any questions you desire.
Yeah, but if you're looking, if you'd like to speak to someone to learn more about the program, then you can book a video call with someone from our team on our website, and the link for that is at the top of the website. I just put the link to the website in the chat box. Now, from another standpoint, if we're talking about if you're in the program, if you're going to get someone to guide you, that's part of the program. It's a group-based program, so there's no individual one-on-one guidance, but the guidance is through the group. Again, referencing back to this whole community aspect that we talked about earlier. You're going, depending on what your specialty or what your desire is, you're probably going to find people better than me and Alonso and Mike to guide you in certain areas. If you're wanting to be a big data cloud architect, we got some big data cloud architects that can give you some guidance within the community. If you're interested in security, we got some security people. Again, Mike, I know you're pretty good at security, but you're a networking guy. But we got security.
It's
people.
true. I'm a network security guy.
Right.
There's other types of security.
But there's so many people in the community that are there for you as a member. But there's just so much benefit from it. Hopefully we covered that. Let's see. Would becoming a cloud architect and assist in getting a work visa in the States? Did you have any students that had this happen to them?
So we've had many students. So recently, Nayan was a student of ours. He was here on a student visa. He was going to have to go home to India, and he just got a really great job. In fact, it was a better job than the one he even applied for. We had Benedict, who was living in Lagos, Nigeria, who's now in Canada. We had Andrew, who was a student of ours that moved to England. We've had a tremendous number of people that used our program and actually became working in the United States or Canada. But we are not attorneys. And I always recommend speaking to an immigration attorney.
Anakin here says the community is one of the best things about this program. There's so many wonderful people willing to help and practice with you. It really is amazing. So it's not just me saying it. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, Anakin.
James T says, out of curiosity, if all cloud providers are the same, why do you advise against getting a Google Architect certification? I'd prefer Azure, but outside of your material, their content is hard to find.
Well, James, I don't recommend Google because Google owns 10% of the cloud market space. And if somebody is concerned about a certification and you get the one that nobody's using, it's basically like you decided to learn, let's say you wanted to work in England and you decided to learn Yoruba. Yoruba is great if you live in Nigeria, but it's not going to work on Wall Street and it's not going to work on England. English would. Even though Yoruba is a very important language, and a language that's in a country that has 200 million wonderful people. So the key is the same thing with Greek. I speak Greek at home, but I'm not really going to put that in a job application. I live near Miami, Florida, that I speak Greek. Now, if I spoke Spanish in Florida, in addition to English, that would be much more relevant to me, and I do speak some Spanish. So the key is I recommend you getting the most generic thing that's actually out there. So there's that. Now, the reality is there's a lot of great materials on Azure. Buy the books made by Microsoft and get the Microsoft training, and it's great. Now, there's not a lot of what I call horrible Udemy content that's made by people that have never worked in the thing that are walking you through how to pass a certification, but you don't want that anyway. So the key is do AWS or do Azure, but get something that's very generic.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to think Azure is going to be the dominant cloud. I think that we've watched it grow. I think Microsoft has the most experience of anyone in the industry with regards to digital transformation. And Microsoft does something that I really like. And here's what it is. And companies like it too. AWS had an outage last week and they said it was a Lambda function. Now, they didn't tell you if they had a DDoS attack, which affected their Lambda function, if they made a routing error in their interior gateway protocol or BGP, which caused a Lambda function, if their servers were overloaded because they didn't plan capacity, other than, systems throughout the world went down because Lambda. Now, Azure had an outage last week, and they were very honest. Initially, they said it was a spike in network traffic, and they said they're going to further investigate it. And a couple days later, they had a DDoS attack. If you look about a year ago, AWS had like a 5-hour outage, and they blamed it on an impaired network. And was it a DDoS attack? Was it a network error? Was it this? Was it this? And Azure had an outage, and they said they were hacked. Now, after AWS's cryptic answer, everybody went to Azure. And here's the reason why. It's very hard to design systems if you don't know how they fail, because you can't architect around them. And it's very hard to design a system if the people don't give you an answer that you believe. So I think AWS or Azure are your primary. AWS has a slight edge in market adoption. Azure has a big edge in artificial intelligence right now. Azure and Microsoft have a big edge in enterprise because they've got deeper relationships with their customers. And Microsoft has a big foothold with regards to digital transformation. So I'd say AWS and Azure. I love Google. It's a great cloud. Stay away from it. Stay away from the Oracle cloud. They're big, great, strong, wonderful companies. But the whole point of getting a degree is getting a degree or a certification that looks like you might know something, even though they won't teach you anything that you need to know. But you want to get some stamp on your resume. Get the stamp from the big guys, not the little guys. So stay away from them from a certification perspective, not a cloud perspective. 98% of organizations use 3 clouds. Guess what? If I was in the AWS cloud and the Azure cloud, I'd be backing up to the Oracle cloud or the Google cloud. I might actually put my systems in the Oracle cloud if they gave me the best price. Either way, you're good to go.
All right. So Helen asks, what is the hiring percentage probability in Africa? Do you get hired after gaining the skills?
We've got plenty of students that are getting hired in Africa. We had somebody recently get hired in South Africa. But it is harder in Africa than it is in the rest of the world. I wish it wasn't, but it is. It is much harder there, but we still have students. I would say the easiest place to get hired is probably South Africa, followed by Nigeria. Because you think of Nigeria as Silicon Valley in Africa. South Africa is the biggest, most industrialized from a financial perspective in Africa. Although I'm seeing a lot of tech investment in Cameroon as well. And other parts of Africa are also growing a lot as well. But, I'd say those are your 3, at least Nigeria and South Africa are going to be your easiest, with South Africa being far the easiest.
All right. Karen followed up on my question about why does she desire CCNP? And that's the exact reason I'm glad that she said. The reason for the CCNP is based on Mike's suggestion that while in the course, since I don't have tech experience, take the CCNP certification to stand out on paper in order to enhance my resume. That's pretty much the only benefit to these certifications. So I'm glad that that's the reason and that's the desire.
Total frosting.
If that's the reason and the desire, then Mike mentioned it earlier. We focus on just enough to get you to what you need to focus on that you're going to be doing in the job. But if you want to take it a step further and get these CCNP, CCIE, CCNA, then go to the source. They go to the vendor, get the vendor's materials, and don't. And you can buy their books, used, new, etc., whatever. If you buy it new, especially with Cisco, if you buy these new, they come with so many additional resources specifically geared to help you with the certification exam. So just recommendation, if you have the opportunity and the ability to purchase their vendor official vendor resources, purchase them new from the source, Cisco. Again, because they come with so many resources, test banks, question banks, practice exams, virtual sandboxes for you to play with the things that they're teaching. Again, tailored specifically for that exam and that certification. So Mike mentioned that earlier. We always mention go directly to the source and go directly to the vendors. So glad you answered that, because I that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that was the reason, because that's the best use for any certification is that right there, to enhance your resume and stand out on paper. But the knowledge and the skill, if you don't have an extensive background, you don't have an extensive experience, that those knowledge and skills are critical. But yeah. The certification does help you stand out among the crowd. So thank you for responding to me, Karen. Mike, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I really do like the CCNP. It's a good stamp. People know it's a more challenging certification, and that's the key. You know, it's 500 pages of reading to pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. It's about 10,000 pages for the CCNP. And the reality is, when you do a Certified Solution Architect Professional, it's just the name of the service and how to configure it, which has nothing related to design. Now, when you do the Cisco Certified Network Professional, there's going to be a lot on routing, which is part of our design. There's going to be a lot on how these routing protocols work, whether it be OSPF or BGP to some degree. It's going to be there. There's going to be a lot on IP address planning, and those kind of things are necessary to be an architect. So nobody's going to become an architect from certifications, but it's going to actually teach you some things that are going to be beneficial to you in the CCNP. And more importantly, it is a nice stamp on your resume, and it's going to stand out, and it's going to be very helpful. So I love that plan, and that's a good reason. We just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to get 10 different certifications, just do them, because we wanted you to be focused on what you're doing and why.
Okay, there I go, talking to a mute button again. All right, we're starting to get to the end of the questions. So if you've got any questions, make sure to put them here in the chat box. We don't want to miss this opportunity. Nadir says, hello, network engineer, Cisco, and Microsoft, and VMware. My question, I want to shift to cloud computing. What's your advice and roadmap for me?
Well, Nadir, could you actually explain network engineer to me? Because if you're working on Microsoft and VMware, you're not doing networking. Network engineers are working on routers and switches only. And so explain what you mean by that to me. But if you are an actual network engineer, which means you're tuning and optimize routing protocols, you're working with OSPF all day or EIGRP all day, or intermediate systems to intermediate systems, so you're designing IP addressing schemes, or you're planning your BGP peering things, that's network engineering. You have to first tell me which career you want in the cloud. Do you want to be an architect, or do you want to be an engineer? Because what you need to do is going to be completely different. Likewise, if you want to be a DevOps engineer, it's another set of careers. Could you tell us what you'd like to do? And I'll happily give you the answer. But also, could you tell me what you mean by network engineer? Are you working with VMware and Microsoft stuff, which means you're probably doing more sysadmin work? Or are you doing just networking, configuring switches, VLANs, tags, trunks, serial lines, Ethernet lines, MPLS lines? Could you tell me what you're doing, and I can tell you what you need? So I'd like to know your baseline, and I'd like to know your goal, because I want to get you there, but I need to know these things.
All right. How much should you invest in terms of money and time to become a cloud architect?
Well, the cheapest thing that's out there is our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, which is self-paced, probably take you between 6 months and a year, and it's about $2,500. What I did, which is what I don't want you to do, which is why I created this program for $2,500, is I don't want you to need to spend a few $100,000 like I did. And why was mine so expensive? The architect is such a blend of business skills and executive skills and tech skills that it's a very expensive career to learn. And that's why we basically operated our cost almost like a charitable mission to truly help people get the best jobs that need it. I went and got an MBA to learn the business piece and took roughly $100,000 of classes above that on CXO relevancy, on presentation skills, on sales skills, on executive presence, on emotional intelligence. And I also had about $40,000 or $50,000 of design training in networking and data center technologies. So I don't want you to have to do that. And that's why we have our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, where we teach all those business skills so you don't need to get an MBA. We teach all those executive skills so you don't need to get an executive coach and pay $400 a week like I've done. So you don't need to take a $3,000 presentation class and a $5,000 CXO relevancy class. When it's very simple in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, it's all included. So there's there. How much time? That's up to you. And what do I mean why it's up to you? I've gotten students out of my program like Joe Millen, who had a strong networking background, in 3 weeks by the time he was hired. I had Delroy Batt hired with a really good job within 3 weeks in my program. Richard Afukar came through my program and he was hired by AWS as a technical account manager, not cloud architect, but he was inside of my program for 3 weeks. And he got a really good job and he was extremely happy. So, you know, I've got students that are getting through in 6 months. I've got students that need 14 months. And it's up to them, really, and it's up to you. How much time can you dedicate to study each day? How fast do you learn? So I would say about 6 months to a year with the good training. If you tried to self-pace it, I would tell you 2 to 3 years, it would be the fastest if you tried to learn it on your own. And here's the reason why. If you don't actually know the job, you don't know what to learn and not to learn. So let's say we're going through a CCNP for your fundamentals networking. The CCNP doesn't really have BGP in it, so you'd need to learn that. The CCNP has about 6,000 pages of things that you don't need to know. But there's about 4,000 pages of what you need to know from that curriculum that's in our program. Now, we summarize that into only the elements you need to know, make it fast and easy for you. So, you know, with us, I can think we can save you about 2 years getting to your goal. And with the average architect earning $800 a day, if we can save you 2 years, we're basically going to help increase your earnings by about $400,000. So I think, you know, I'd spend $2,500 to easy any day to save myself a tremendous amount of money on studying and also get hired faster for a higher paying job. At least that's the way I would look at it. And what I did, when I started, is I did take an $11,000 CCNP bootcamp. And I did take a $5,000 MCSE bootcamp. And I did take a CCDP bootcamp. And I did take all these expensive trainings. And then I got an MBA. And then I got more training. And then I got architecture training, which wasn't covered in certification training. So that's my answer to you.
All right. What are some of the type of architects someone can be?
School.
I'll put a video in the chat box while you answer, Mike.
Well, there's a lot of architects you could be. You could become a network architect who focuses on network design. You could become an application architect who focuses on application design. You could become a big data architect who focuses on big data. You could become an identity and access management architect who focuses on just identity and access management. I think there'll be some new roles for some artificial intelligence architects that are coming out here. They're going to be designing architecture solutions. Again, the key with architecture is we don't touch the technology. You could be a cloud architect that designs multi-cloud solutions. You could be a solution architect that only designs on one vendor. I wouldn't be doing that in a world when 98% of organizations use more than one vendor. You can be an enterprise architect that focuses even more on the business level. You could be a cloud security architect who focuses on security in the cloud, a cloud network architect who focuses on networking in the cloud. You can be a business architect like I've been, which I really love, which is basically a strategy consultant that architects business. And silence poet, here's the thing. All elite jobs are architect jobs. I'm going to say that again. Every executive position is an architect job. I'm the CEO. I have to architect the business strategy. Alonso is my chief marketing officer, and he architects our marketing strategy. Chris is our chief operating officer, and he architects how the business is going to function. So all big roles are architect jobs. So that's why these architect jobs are such good jobs, because everything big is an architect job in the first place. And there's so much potential.
All right. Rashad says, is there any danger of using AWS for solutions or parts of a solution where you shouldn't? For example, only having a hammer in your toolkit and trying to use a hammer to solve every problem.
Rashad, let's say you were an architect, if you designed everything on AWS, you'd be fired within months.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. When it comes to security, if you tried to secure your system on WAF, you'd be fired if it mattered, because WAF is not suitable for big enterprises. And here's the problem with WAF. With WAF, let's say this is my hand is the firewall and something breaches through the firewall. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to get a notification message that you've been hacked. With a Palo Alto next generation firewall, something breaches the firewall and the firewall is going to go, uh-oh, alert, 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 stop the attack in its tracks. It's adaptive in nature. So right then and there, you couldn't use it. Now, if you use something like DynamoDB or Amazon Aurora in your architecture, and the customer wanted to do a multi-cloud solution, you just broke your customer so they couldn't do it. So yes, you can't talk to your customers in AWS terms, because you don't look like a trusted advisor. You look like you've got an initiative. And at least 50% of what you do in the cloud, you can't use AWS solutions. You have to use more generic solutions, because 98% of organizations are multi-cloud. So there are a tremendous number of dangers if you basically do what's in your certification. First, your systems will fall apart, they won't be secure, and they won't be high availability, and they won't meet the needs of your organization. So yes, you have to know what to do and what not to do. Now, you might think I'm picking on AWS here, but I'm not. It's the same for an Azure certification or a Google certification or a Cisco certification. There are times where you need to do what's in the certification and times where you don't. And see, the thing is, employers don't care about experience. They care about, what they really care about is competency, even though they say experience. And when they say experience, they want to know that you know not to use Elastic Compute Service, because it locks you into AWS. They want you to know why you can't use DynamoDB because of the problems that will occur, why you can't use Amazon Aurora, why you shouldn't use WAF. They want to know that if you set up a Bastion host, you're going to get hacked, so don't do it. So they want to know that you know not to do half of the things that are taught in your certifications, because you look like a hammer if you only know one. But it's not just looking like a hammer. It's like being a drunk hammer. It's like being a hammer that's biased. And you can't afford to be a drunk, biased solution provider when you're trying to consult with a company. You must be a trusted advisor. Every company knows that when I speak to them, that I'm going to do what's right for their business. And if it's a Cisco product, I'll use it. If it's a Juniper Networks product, I'll use it. If it's an Azure product, I'll use it. If it's an Oracle product, I'll use it. I'm going to find out what my customers' needs are, and I'm going to design a solution that's going to optimize their business, because that's my goal. I'm not concerned about the tech. The tech is just a tool. A carpenter is more than the hammer and the screwdriver. They know when to use the hammer, when to use a nail gun, when to use a wrench, whenever these tools are. I don't know how to use any tools, unfortunately. I don't know how to do construction, but I've got a good friend, Ted, that does. I know how to design systems. So yes, there are major dangers, and you're very perceptive to ask that question. Very good at question.
From Heavily Vision, considering the fact that there aren't many cloud architect jobs in Africa, do you advise that I start out as a software engineer, and with what time train to become a cloud architect for someone pivoting to tech?
So Heavenly Vision, I want to really put that into clarity for you. You're basically saying, if I learn to paint a house, will somebody ask me to design a shopping mall? And the answer is no. Anytime you spend as a software engineer will teach you nothing about how to design a cloud solution, because being a software engineer is about coding, and designing a cloud solution is about business and how to change them. There are cloud architect jobs in Africa, and if you want to be a cloud architect, you're going to have to learn how to become a cloud architect. The reality is, if I learn to be an airplane mechanic, nobody's going to hire me as an airplane pilot because it's somebody else's job. If I learn to be a construction worker, nobody's going to hire me to be a building architect because it's different training. Now, if you want to be a software engineer, become a software engineer. Now, becoming a network engineer would give you something that's related. Becoming a data center engineer would give you something that's related. But if I wanted to be a cloud architect, I'd learn to be a cloud architect. And, you know, I learned all about this. You know, I studied internal medicine first. I'm going to tell you, that doesn't really hold a lot of water when I try to tell employers I'm a cloud architect. Now, when I tell them I'm an expert at designing solutions for healthcare, they're like, Mike, you know internal medicine, woohoo, we really love you. But you don't get good at your job by learning somebody else's job. It's just, there's no carryover. So if you want to be a cloud architect, learn to be a cloud architect. You want to be a software engineer, learn to be a software engineer. You want to be a cloud engineer, learn to be a cloud engineer. But don't think learning somebody else's job will give you any preparation to get the job that you want, because it's just not. Would you hire a doctor that learned how to paint houses and didn't go to medical school to take care of your kid? No, because you can't learn how to be a doctor on the job. Same thing with being an architect. Either of you want to add to that?
I certainly agree. I couldn't agree more. You don't, if you want the closest, fastest, most direct path, you don't do a layover flight when you can go direct. So ensuring that you have the competency, the capability to fit the needs of the goal you're looking for is going to be your quickest way to your destination. And then look at it this way. You say start off as a software engineer so that you can become a cloud architect. You're going to have to learn something and then unlearn something so that you can go and start learning the things that you really, truly want. And I think it would be a disservice to you, Heavenly Vision, to go east so you can go west. So go to the direction that you want to go in to be the person you want to be.
All right. So let's see. Hello, I'm completely new to IT, but I'm looking to become multi-cloud or security cloud architect. I'm working on getting my master's in IT. What is the best route for me to become an architect?
Well, good. I'm glad that you're doing advanced education. If you could change your master's in IT to a master's in business, it would go a long way to help you be an architect. In a master's in IT, they're going to teach you the inner workings of IT. An architect is about designing a solution to improve a customer's business performance. So you're going to need to get some education in architecture. My recommendation is that you attend the completely free webinar on our Lead Architect webinar on Thursday. And we'll tell you what you need to learn and how we can get to help you get there. And there's also a document that's attached in the description of this video that tells you every skill you need to be as an architect. But you're going to have to learn how to design, present, and sell technology in order to optimize a customer's business performance. So being an architect is really learning how to be a consultant. How do you approach a client? How do you find out what their business needs are? How do you determine what technology they have? How do you determine what technology is going to improve their business performance? How do you convince the customer they need that technology? How do you sell it back to them? How do you build a business case to show them that your billion-dollar technology solution will deliver $3 billion of business value? How do you convince them that if you invest your money in my tech solution, they're going to get a better return on investment than if they invested in somebody else's tech solution? How do you negotiate it? So these are really the key skills, stakeholder management. So Look, it's about learning the networking, the data center, and the cloud technologies necessary for you to design a solution at a depth that's about 10 times deeper than certification, which is what we teach. And then it's developing all those business skills, and I gave you an example of why. So attend our Lead Architect info session, and we'll give you a lot of information here on that.
All right, James says, I've chosen virtualization, firewalls, and storage as my 3 technologies to master for interviews. Are these good topics to use for interviews to show competency? I want to keep it simple so I could focus on my soft skills and other strengths without sounding too techy or forgetting technology and botching the interview.
James, this is a job that pays $200,000 to $500,000 a year. You can't keep it simple. You got to have some depth to you. Now, storage would be a good option because when it comes to storage, you're dealing with block storage, object storage, file storage. You're dealing with cloud, which has really slow performance because block storage is really slow. So now you're getting into RAID, and now you're getting into server message block for Windows and NFS for Linux and Unix systems. And now you're getting into the different RAID environments and backup and recovery. So storage would work because you could spend, literally speaking, a month preparing how to answer storage questions and still have a lot to learn. So that storage would be good. Firewalls, you can learn about in an hour. You can't just know firewalls. Now, maybe if you knew how to design a secure DMZ, that would be something. Or how to design an end-to-end security policy, that would be something. But not a firewall. A firewall is a tool. It's like saying I'm an expert in a hammer. There's just nothing to it. Same thing with virtualization. What is it? A virtual machine, I can teach you what it is in 15 minutes. Maybe spend an hour and give you some inner workings on it, but it's not going to impress anybody. So storage, sure. And the reason that James is asking this question is when it comes to an interview, you need to know more than 3 things. If you only know 3 things, James, you're never going to win any interview. The learning 3 things and mastering 3 things is when you get interview questions that you don't know that you can point them to your competency. So if you've only learned 3 things, I suggest a different career. You need to learn all of the cloud stuff, but focus heavily on 3 things so that when you get a question that you don't know, for example, if I asked you how RSVP signaling was used to set up an MPLS traffic engineered tunnel and you don't know, it gives you an opportunity to point to the 3 things that you know best to redirect the interview on the things that you know best. But you can't just know 3 things.
Right.
You're going to need to know all of it.
Right.
All those things that we cover on those webinars, you're going to need to know with a moderate amount of depth. And you need to have extreme depth on 3 things. So when they hit you with something you don't know, then you're good to go.
And you think, Mike, when it comes to him being specific about these 3 technologies, we don't even know what opportunity he's vying for. Is this a networking? Is this a security? What is it that you're going for? So it's like you have to focus on your competencies, and just these 3 pieces are definitely not going to be enough. So if they go and go left and talk about OSPF, or they're talking about how would you tune BGP or anything else, then if you paint yourself in these 3 corners, there's no telling how this is going to proverbially shake out the bag. So James, just make sure, based off of your development course, what you need to be doing and how you're going to be able to position yourself as a very viable and top-notch candidate that they can't live without.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So we'll get to our last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Anakin Cloudwalker asks, how do you mention taking boot camps on your resume? Or how do you bring it up during an interview?
You don't.
You don't. So watch. Alonso, I'm going to interview you. I want you to tell me about a boot camp, not ours, because we don't offer a boot camp. Alonso, Alonso, tell me about yourself and bring up something silly about a boot camp.
Well, actually, Mike, I've gone through multiple boot camps, and I know about AWS WAF. I know about AWS block storage. I know about AWS databases, and I've really been able to, if you will, pass a lot of AWS certifications because of that boot camp.
All right, Alonso, come back when you have more experience. Now, by comparison, Alonso, I see you've got Go Cloud Careers, and I've noticed you've done a lot of things while you were at Go Cloud Careers. You've designed clouds, you've consulted with clients, you've responded to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, you've led large teams, you've built business cases for your customers. Could you tell me about that experience?
Absolutely, Mike. I think what we've been able to create at Go Cloud Careers, I've been able to really manifest my capabilities and competencies using a wide variety of cloud computing as well as database and networking scenarios. So I am able to give you something specific about my competencies, but overall, it has been a wonderful experience where I've been able to leverage a lot of my capabilities with cloud, and I can focus on security or anything else if you'd like.
Okay, so, and Alonso did that on the fly. He'd prepare it for an act whenever, but here's the thing. The reason we create internships for every student we have is so they can list us as a job. And we give them actual things to do, like you've done real architecture projects, because I don't want people talking about a boot camp. Because when you tell me I attended a training session, it's like, okay, you don't know. But if you have something where you're actually doing real work, that's the exact work you'd be doing in the field, then it's not a boot camp. So I would say, for example, if I was part of Go Cloud Careers, I've done this one-year internship with Go Cloud Careers. And in this internship, we've consulted with clients. We've designed architectures for banks, retail organizations, internet service providers, social media providers. I've delivered a tremendous number of presentations. I've led teams of architects and engineers and specialists. I've responded to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. We've designed hybrid and hybrid multi-cloud solutions for organizations. We've designed secure DMZs for critical banking institutions, those kind of things. And that way you've got a job on your resume, which shows experience. So I don't talk about certifications.
No, it's definitely, it's like the frosting on the cake. You have to be the gift, Anakin. You have to showcase your competencies. You have to be able to deliver both the technical and the business and the leadership and all the other facets that we teach here so that it can reflect in how you answer these questions and be able to effectively shut down each question before he or she has an opportunity to ask anything else.
All right, so here is our last question from Mo. As a senior network engineer with the CCIE, I'm pondering over a network architect role. Yet, considering future executive roles, would a cloud architect position offer a better path?
You know, it's a great question, Mo. And I'm a CCIE, my number 7417. I like to tell people that my CCIE was my introduction to networking. Because to me, that's really what it was. It was when I started to learn networking. And I spent a lot of time as a network architect. I worked at Cisco as a network architect. I worked at Riverstone as a network architect. I worked on Wall Street as a network architect. And I absolutely love it. I absolutely love being a network architect. And I still think there's a place for it, but here's the problem. Big banks are going to look for network architects. Internet service providers are going to look for network architects. Cloud networking vendors are looking for network architects. But as more things go to the cloud, it's more of a cloud network architect that they're really going to look for, which has got cloud knowledge as well as there. Now, I'm going to also give you the experience that I had. I was a techie architect, like a network architect. And then something big happened to me. I finished my MBA when I was at Cisco. And I had the opportunity to take on a bigger enterprise architect role, where I wasn't just focused on the, the networking. I was focused on everything. The applications the organizations would use, the servers the organizations would use, the security the organizations would use. And Mo, that's when your salary goes from $180,000 CCIE to a $350,000 or $400,000 CCIE as a cloud architect, especially if you focus on the business side. So the key is you're going to have many more opportunities as a cloud as a cloud architect than you will as a network architect, because most organizations are going to the cloud. And why are they doing it? To get rid of us highly expensive network architects and to reduce the complexity. Very few people have real networking people working for them. They either have networking people like you or me. Like I said, my CCNA number is 7417. That was my intro to networking. Or they have, the Linux network Windows person, which isn't really a network engineer at all. They're just sort of doing a little of everything. They're kind of like a hybrid position. And when companies have these hybrid positions, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your career, they have outages every day because they don't have people that truly understand routing. So I think you'll be better off with as a cloud architect, which is why I migrated there myself. And I've got a lot of CCIEs as students that have come to us, and we've gotten them some pretty great jobs because there's just more opportunity, so much more opportunity in the cloud right now than there actually is in networking. Even though I love networking, even though networking is near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to tell you that networking is my favorite thing. I traveled to pretty much every country in the entire world consulting on IP multicast, specifically video, as well as banking feeds. Got about 10,000 hours of just BGP. And if there's anything in the world that I love, it's networking. But I think you've got more opportunity on the cloud, and I would suggest it. Okay, so I hope we answered as many questions as we possibly could. We're going to come back tomorrow evening and do some more career questions after the subnetting workshop that we're going to do tomorrow. So we're going to have a nice subnetting workshop. It's going to be a lot of fun. Me and Leo from my team, we're going to work through some subnetting, some supernetting, route aggregation, those kind of things. We'll start from the concepts of subnetting and why we do subnetting. And then Leo is going to get really geeky on the math with you. It's going to be a really fun experience. I like to say this is where you put the hat on with the propellers on top of the hat. We're going to get real geeky and get all techie because it's critical information. And then after that, we'll get back into the functions and why. And then we'll even deal with some questions that you may have after the fact about your career, because I want to know that everybody that wants a cloud architect job is going to get a cloud architect job. I got to tell you, I've been an engineer before, and it was good. And going from an engineer to an architect, at least for me, was the greatest experience in the world. When I was a network engineer, I was coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning to upgrade code on a router or change a route. When I became a cloud architect, it was like, Mike, could you take this client to lunch? Here's your corporate American Express card. Could you take this client golfing? Could you give this presentation? Could you go talk to some people in Dubai? Could you go talk to some people in Panama? I need you in England tomorrow. I need you in Brisbane, Australia. It was a great job. It was the most fun thing. And I want everybody to know how wonderful this architect career can be. It's the most amazing thing ever. So come to the subnetting workshop tomorrow, whether you want to be a cloud engineer, a network engineer, a cloud architect, it's critical information. And also, while we're at it on Thursday, come to our Elite Architect webinar. This is the most special program in the entire world. This program took people with hundreds of years of experience, millions of dollars of education to put a program like this together. It has many architects teaching in it, many director and VP level executives teaching in it. It's got business school professors teaching in it. We've got interview coaches, executive coaches. It's the most amazing thing. It's the culmination of my life's work. And I'm really proud and excited about it. Chris put a lot into it. Professors at University of Tennessee put a lot into it. Alonso put a lot into it. I mean, we have application architects like Angelo that are part of this. We've got he's an enterprise architect, application architects like Lohit over at AWS. We've got other architects working and enterprise architects, other network architects, big data architects like Praveen in here, and all the business things. It's the most exciting thing I've ever done in my entire year. And you're talking to a person that's closed billion-dollar-plus deals, that used to practice internal medicine, that worked as a lead architect for an entire vertical industry at Cisco, and I'm more excited in this than anything in my entire life. So join us for the Elite Architect Info webinar. We could talk about how we can change your life and make you have a life that you can possibly only dream about. And see you tomorrow for the completely free subnetting workshop. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.